I'm in the big leagues, told her don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making hits, dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding the road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now, so I need that go, y'all. Got hits when they throwin' the fastball, just too quick for it. Peeling off like the whip orange. Seen they effort this piss poor. I got too much. I gotta.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Another Turnover, the basketball podcast where a basketball fan with zero basketball credibility gives his opinions on what's going on in the NBA. Opinions that nobody asked for. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Chris Aaron Murphy, aka AA Ron. And ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into it. Folks, we are back with another week of Season 3, Episode 2 of Season 3. I want to give a quick shout out to Jason Ruiz and Chris Bradshaw for being on the season premiere last week. That was a whole lot of fun. And be looking for more very special guests down the road in the near future. But let's get into tonight. Let's get into opening week, because we are still in the midst of opening week. Season just tipped off on Tuesday of this past week, and now we are looking at, I'm recording this Thursday night, but we are looking at a whole slate of games coming up. But I want to do a quick recap, not necessarily quick, but I want to go through some of the games that happened from opening week and talk about some of the stories along the storylines that have happened along with those games of the past week. But let's get into it. So Tuesday was opening night of the NBA. Like I said, we had the doubleheader on ESPN. TNT. You had the Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Boston Celtics, and the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Golden State Warriors. So let's take a look into that first game in the Eastern Conference between two Eastern Conference powerhouse teams. So the Celtics had a pretty solid showing overall against the Philadelphia 76ers. The final score was 126 to 117. Now, the first half was pretty close. I watched that game in its entirety. First half was pretty close. You had, Boston ahead by a bit. You had Philadelphia ahead by a bit. It was a pretty good game. James Harden looked pretty good early on, and I think it was Bleacher Report that posted a picture of him to James Harden tonight, and he was in his Rockets jersey. I was like, James Harden returning to form as Rockets James Harden. Where have we heard that before? But I thought that was pretty cool. He had 16 points in the first quarter, finished the game with 35 points on 9 of 14 shooting, had a ton of free throws. So it was definitely a throwback Rockets James Harden that we saw for most of that game on Tuesday against the Celtics. But Celtics interim coach Joe Mazzulla seemed to keep similar, schemes against the Philadelphia 76ers, similar schemes that Ime Udoka was utilizing for the Celtics squad. So plenty of ball movement offensively. Celtics players move pretty well without the ball, and pretty aggressive on-ball defense. So they were showing signs of, like I said, keeping Ime Udoka schemes from his tenure. Obviously, we know he has been suspended for the year, which makes sense, right? I mean, with Joe Mazzulla coming in, I mean, if I were coming in as the interim head coach, I probably would not change everything right away, especially because Ime Udoka took them to the finals in his first year as head coach. So it makes way more sense for him to, kind of have a similar style of play. But I'm sure as the season progresses, we'll see, tweaks here and there that Joe Mazzulla will put on this offense, and as well as defense as well. And so it should be pretty interesting. But I really liked Malcolm Brogdon off the bench for this Boston Celtics team. I actually low-key forgot about that. That was a big pickup for them. Now the Boston Celtics have a pretty solid point guard. They brought him off the bench. He had 16 points and 4 assists coming off the bench. So if you can get production like that from Malcolm Brogdon pretty consistently, which he's pretty good for that stat line, that's great for your bench. But I honestly thought they were going to start him instead of Derek White. Now, I know Derek White obviously was there last year, so he knows the offense just a little bit better, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So we'll see how that goes. But Malcolm Brogdon off the bench, if they're able to keep him coming off the bench, I think that's going to be great and do wonders for the Celtics team. But you also had Jason Tatum, had a pretty good game yesterday. Last time we obviously saw Jason Tatum, he struggled that Game 6 against the Golden State Warriors. So this was, not necessarily bounce back because it's a new season. It's a fresh slate. But he had 35 points, 12 rebounds as well. They had a really solid rebounding night. Not necessarily known as a pretty prolific rebounder, but he had shot 13 of 20 from the field, so pretty good shooting night overall for Jason Tatum. So a pretty solid game across the board for the Boston Celtics. The biggest story early for this season, I should say, is that the Celtics, will they be able to, hold the fort down until Robert Williams comes back? And I know Robert Williams is not their best player, but he is a integral player for this team. So he is going to be out for it's saying at least 2 months. So with his knee injury, I think he had knee surgery over the summer. So it's unfortunate that he's going to be out, but I see the Celtics, doing okay. I mean, they were my preseason pick. What did I have them as? I had them as the 5th seed. So, I have them run of the mill, but they look good against Philadelphia. I will say that. And Philadelphia obviously was my pick to have the best regular season record in the league. But they look good. So, obviously, it's game 1. We're not going to panic, or we're not going to put too much stock into it, but a pretty solid showing overall for the Boston Celtics in that first game of the doubleheader. But let's go to the second game. Let's talk about that Golden State Warriors and Los Angeles Lakers game. So, Warriors got their rings on Tuesday night, and those are some nice looking rings. I don't know if anybody's seen the pictures and the videos, but I think Clay, Steph, and Draymond, I think Andre Iguodala as well, because he was there back in their 2015 championship. They showed the rings, and it opened up to show like the 4 championships, and I thought that was pretty cool. Those were some quite expensive looking rings, but it was cool nonetheless to see them hang another banner. Me, Golden State's not my team, but I've always liked them. They've always been, at least Steph and Clay have always been somewhat likable. I know Draymond is pretty polarizing, but that was pretty cool to see them hang another banner. But Warriors won their ring night against the Los Angeles Lakers, winning 123-109. I will give some props to the Los Angeles Lakers off the bat. Anthony Davis looked really good early on. Like, he looked pretty solid. He was aggressive getting to the basket. He was aggressive on the defensive end. He was all over the place. I remember the commentators making a statement about that, saying like AD's got his hands all over the place. And he was solid. He finished with 27 points, 6 rebounds, 4 steals, and played a pretty solid game. He did take some questionable jump shots in the second quarter, but overall, pretty solid. I got to give him respect where respect is due. Anthony Davis had a nice showing. LeBron James as well. Everybody knows I'm a certified LeBron hater, but LeBron played pretty well. Had 31 points, 15 rebounds, which is pretty amazing. 8 assists. He did shoot 3 of 10 from 3-point range, so not the best shooting night in terms of percentage, but a pretty solid game from LeBron from anyone who is in their 20th season. I think they showed he had... The NBA always loves to do those really obscure statistics. He was, the oldest player ever to score at least 30 points in a season opener. I'm like, who tracks that stat? But hey, now LeBron's got it, so kudos to him. But this wasn't really much to do about anything in terms of the game itself. Warriors, they look like their well-oiled machine that they have been since 2015. It just truly is scary how good their young talent can be. Like, you got Steph, Clay, and Draymond all on the worst side of 30 per se. All of them are aging, but still putting up solid production. Don't get me wrong, but you've got Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins is still relatively young. I think he got drafted 2014. So he's still got a hopefully long career ahead of him, and it's incredible to see the development that this Golden State Warriors organization had. It really does remind me, obviously I'm biased, but it really does remind me of the San Antonio Spurs developing talent the way that they have over the past 20 some odd years. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard was a 15th pick. Tony Parker was a low pick. Manu Ginobili was a low pick. It really reminds me of that, of player development, being a part of the foundation of the Golden State Warriors. And so it's scary. Like, could be scary hours for a long time for Golden State, for the rest of the league. But people were discussing, though, going into the game, whether, the Jordan Poole, Draymond Green incident, would really, negatively impact the team this season. And I know it's game 1. I know it's just the first game. We got 81 more games to go. But I really don't see it being that big of a deal in terms of them on the court. Like, I think it was Draymond and both Jordan Poole said, like, hey, they're professionals. Like, they're going to play the game and they have a job to do and they're going to get it done. So I think I really don't see it affecting this team at all. They have a winning culture, and when you have a winning culture in place, there are not a whole lot of things that can derail you from doing just that, winning. But Steph Curry put up a solid night, or 33 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. You had Klay Thompson putting in 18 points, Andrew Wiggins putting in 20 points. So a pretty solid game from those boys up in Golden State. Biggest takeaway, though, from this game, this Los Angeles Lakers roster is just not good. And I know, shocking, right? Shocking to hear, but this Los Angeles Lakers roster is not any better at all, at least in my opinion, than last year's roster that missed the playoffs. So, I mean, you have horrible spacing. You have, your perimeter defense is bad. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Perimeter defense is just not good. It just seems the pieces don't fit together. And it's unfortunate because this is LeBron's 20th season and Father Time is right around the corner. Father Time is right down the street, but they just don't fit. And it's not all Russ's fault. It is not. I want to make sure I'm 100% clear about that. It is not all of Russell Westbrook's fault for the struggles that this Lakers team had last year and probably going to have this year. I think some of the blame can be placed on him. Don't get me wrong, but he does not deserve all of the blame for this Lakers, these Lakers shortcomings. I think he has unfairly been made a scapegoat with all of their struggles, and I don't think that's right. But like I said, he's got some culpability, but so does LeBron, so does Rob Pelinka, so does Jeannie Buss, so does Anthony Davis. But it's not all Russ's fault. So I do agree, though, all in all, that he isn't a great fit for the team. And I really do feel as if the Los Angeles Lakers should look into, moving him for better pieces that fit with that team. But like I said, I still think Russ can put up solid numbers somewhere else. He's still a solid NBA player that you probably want on most teams. But this Lakers team, I just don't think it's working out. But maybe they try to move him if they can. But if I were the front office and I had a solid deal that I could make for him for an expiring contract, I'd make it happen. But that was the biggest takeaway from that Los Angeles Lakers Golden State Warriors game. But let's transition a little bit. But before we do transition a little bit, I got to talk about my favorite fantasy football podcast, Leather Brains. I got to tell you about Leather Brains because it is the perfect mix between information and entertainment. And most importantly, will give you a leg up on your fantasy football league. So two of my buddies host this podcast, Matthew Scotty Holtmeyer, Hunter Slapdog Amaruso. Very, very funny podcast. They are both some of the funniest guys that I've ever met. But every episode is kind of filled with, it's filled with all the stats you need. It's filled with great insight, and it's filled with a lot of fun. But shows must listen. Search for Leather Brains with a Z on YouTube or your favorite podcast app today. And I promise you, you will not forget it. But all right, let's transition. Let's talk about Wednesday night's game. Let's talk about that Nets and Pelicans game, because that one was pretty eye-opening for me. Like I said, first game of the season, but the Pelicans won that game very handily, 130-108. The Pelicans came out swinging in this game. It was pretty incredible. They led the game 32-14 at the end of the first quarter. I checked the score. I was like, what the heck? What is going on? So they shot 12 of 26 from 3-point range for the game, so 46%. They out-rebounded the Brooklyn Nets 61-39. Nearly beat Brooklyn in every statistical category. I believe the only category where they didn't have more of was steals, if I'm not mistaken. But this Pelicans team, Zion Williamson, they look good. Zion Williamson looked really good. He only played 30 minutes last night, but he had 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 steals. I think shot 50% from the field as well, 11 for 22. Brandon Ingram put in 28 points. You got CJ McCollum give you 21 points. That's a pretty solid production from the big three of the New Orleans Pelicans. So I think they looked really good. I know I had them preseason as number 7. I would not be surprised if they finish higher than 7th in the NBA this year. But on the flip side of that, let's take a look at the Brooklyn Nets. I know it's game 1, and I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to panic at all. Well, I shouldn't be panicking. I'm not a Brooklyn Nets fan. I don't care if they make the playoffs or not. But I had them, I believe, I had them fourth. I had them in my preseason ranking. I had them finishing fourth in the Eastern Conference. And KD did his thing. KD, he put in 32 points, 50% shooting. But you didn't really get much from the rest of the team when I was looking at the box score, except for Patty Mills. Shout out Patty Mills, former San Antonio Spur. 16 points off the bench for Patty Mills, but Kyrie Irving gave you 15 points off 6 of 19 shooting. Ben Simmons, Lord have mercy. Ben Simmons had 4 points, attempted 3 shots, made 2 of them. So, hey, he shot 67%, but he only took 3 shots. 5 rebounds and 5 steals for Ben Simmons. That is obviously not going to be good enough to be a perennial championship team. Now, Kyrie Irving, more often than not, is not going to shoot 6 of 19 from the field. At least I don't think he will. He's proven. He's got a championship. He's proven to come up big when it matters most. Obviously, when he is healthy, which has always been the big thing for him. But I don't think you're going to get 15 points off 6 of 19 shooting from Kyrie Irving consistently. And the Brooklyn Nets were missing 2 key rotational pieces. You had Seth Curry and Joe Harris, who are out for injuries, respectively. But I'm obviously going to give them the benefit of the doubt. This is the first game of the season, and this is the first time they're playing with Ben Simmons, other than obviously preseason, because he did not play at all last year. So I think they'll eventually get it together. At least I'm hoping. If they don't, though, let's say they start off with a really bad start. Say they start off below 500 for the first 20 games or 15 games of the season even. I think Steve Nash is gone, because with that type of talent that they had and what they've gotten overall from the Brooklyn Nets, I think Steve Nash could be in the hot seat if they have a very poor start to this season. So we'll see. Is that a hot take? I don't think so, but we'll see. But other notable games from opening week that you had the Toronto Raptors taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers, beating them 108-105 in Donovan Mitchell's debut. So spoiling the debut of Donovan Mitchell, the Toronto Raptors. I don't think I had them. What did I have the Toronto Raptors? I have the Toronto Raptors missing the playoffs, and I feel like that's going to come back to bite me, but it's fine. It's all good. You had the Chicago Bulls defeated the Miami Heat 116-108. No Zach LaVine for the Chicago Bulls. He is out with an injury for an undisclosed amount of time. But DeMar DeRozan, 37 points, 9 assists in this game against a pretty solid Miami Heat defense. And all I can think of when I see DeMar DeRozan now, I'm like, where was this in San Antonio? We didn't get no 35 points. We didn't get no 37 points. We didn't get 9 assists. What's going on? But it must be the water in Chicago. I don't know. But you had the Memphis Grizzlies taking on the New York Knicks. That was a pretty solid game. I watched that one from start to finish. Memphis Grizzlies defeated the New York Knicks 115-112 in overtime. The Knicks were down by more than 20 points at one time. And so I was like, well, this is going to be a snooze fest, but I got to give them props. They fought back. Jalen Brunson looks really good in that role. You had struggles from RJ Barrett. Julius Randle didn't play the best, but Cam Reddish had a really solid game. I think he had 22 points. Airballed a 3 at the end of the game, but it happens. But a pretty solid. I like what I saw from the New York Knicks. Anybody knows me in real life. I'm not a Knicks fan. My dad is from Brooklyn though, so I like to say I have New York roots indirectly, being from the Midwest. But I like what I saw from the New York Knicks. I like the fight that they had against a pretty solid Memphis Grizzlies team. But this was a surprising one, though. This game, the Utah Jazz defeated the Denver Nuggets 123-102. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. played last night. I think they were both on minutes restrictions, but I thought the Utah Jazz were supposed to be tanking. I thought they were supposed to be tanking for Victor Wembanyama, and I saw the score. They were up by pretty much the entire game, and Colin Sexton had a pretty good game. I don't even know who else is on the Utah Jazz. You have Lauri Markkanen, I know, is on the team, but I was like, what the heck? That's pretty incredible. So, Utah Jazz defeated the Denver Nuggets in the first game of the season for those two teams. And then you had a rematch of last year's Western Conference semifinals. The Phoenix Suns defeated the Dallas Mavericks 107-105. This was another 20-point comeback. The Phoenix Suns were down big in the first half, and I was like, man, this looks like Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals all over again. Like, Phoenix was struggling, and Luka was laughing just like he was last year. And I was like, oh man, well, I've seen this movie before. But credit to the Phoenix Suns, they did not give up and not roll over like they did in the playoffs last year. Pretty solid outing. And who hit the game winner? None other than Damian Lee. Damian Lee put in a night with that game winner. I don't even know what his stat line was, but doesn't matter what his stat line was. He hit the game winner. He hit the shot. So you've already got people now calling for Damian Lee to replace Chris Paul in the starting lineup. I'm like, all right, chill. Like, I know it ain't that funny, but no. Shout out to Damian Lee. Much to the surprise or excitement of Steph Curry. He posted a video because I know it's his brother-in-law. But I thought that was pretty cool. So pretty cool for the Phoenix Suns to win in the manner of fashion that they did. But let's wrap up here. Before I wrap up, we got to talk about the marquee matchup. So remember to play marquee matchups every Friday. They will be posted on my Instagram story. They'll be posted on Twitter. You've got 3 games for the weekend, like I'm going to do like I did last year, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Last week's games were the opening night games on Tuesday, Boston and Philly, and then Golden State and the Lakers. So the rankings will be posted on Mondays. So be sure to check story. Be sure to check, like I said, Twitter and TikTok as well, because I'm trying to get my presence up on TikTok too. But this week, week 2 of marquee matchups, if you are playing, games are worth 2 points each. I don't remember if I said that or not. Games are worth 2 points each. And if you play, you get a chance to win a $50 gift card by December 12th, if you have the most points. But Friday's game, you got the Denver Nuggets taking on the Golden State Warriors in Chase Center. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Bulls in Chicago. And then you have the Phoenix Suns playing against the LA Clippers at Crypto.com Arena now, I believe it is. So, whatever. So, I'm going to go ahead. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and take the Warriors at home. Actually, I have my picks right here. What am I doing? I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the Warriors at home. I'm going to go ahead and take the Cavaliers on the road to win in Chicago. And then I'm going to take the Clippers to win at home against the Phoenix Suns. So that's what I'm going with. Warriors, Cavs, Clippers. But like I said, make sure to play marquee matchups every Friday. But ladies and gentlemen, that is all the show I have for you fine folks. Thank you for tuning in to another week of another turnover goodness. But be sure to like, share, subscribe, all the social media platforms. Follow on all the socials at Another Turnover, wherever you get your social media goodness. But should be a pretty exciting week. We are still, like I said, in the mix of opening week, and I am excited that NBA hoops are back. But anyway, hope you have a wonderful weekend. Be safe, take care, and I will see you next week.
Got hits when they throwing the fastball. Just too quick for it. Peeling off like the whip orange. Seen the effort, this piss poor. I got too much I gotta tend to. Car payments and the rent due. Told y'all that I'm 6 foot, but with the money statement, I'm 10 too. Too much that I've been through, so I